Hey family, I thought I'd do a video on something that's been on my mind, and it's been about healthcare. So right now in the United States, we have the issue in the presidential race of universal healthcare, Medicare for all, and what that means. And those of you in Canada, in the UK, you might wonder why the United States has been so slow to really help sick people by taxing Wall Street speculators, but I thought I'd kind of show my support for such a policy. So I think one of the reasons why I think universal health care will be so beneficial to the United States and also to other countries as well is because how it will affect the medical field. So in the medical field, we are seeing more and more sick people. We're seeing cancer rates skyrocket, and there's not a lot of corporate accountability, meaning some of these food preservatives and some of the artificial ingredients and some of the food which we are eating is making us sick. And I think if more people were able to visit the doctors would have more test subjects and would be able to realize, okay, these people have all these ailments in their organs, on their skin, in their digestive tracts, everything in that nature, and it's coming from where? And then that medical data will be hopefully be transferred to another administration or legislative branch or bureaucratic type of force, something in that nature, where they will take that data and try to trace it back to what's been causing it and try to detect through analytics where it's coming from. And a lot of us already know, like, hey, these excessive fast food, excessive soda, excessive things in that nature are making us sick. But here's the hard thing, family, is that the media, the marketing teams are psychologically, hurting people for money. And what I mean by that is these marketing companies don't really have ethics involved, in my opinion, that work for fast food companies, and they're just trying to earn some money, so they don't really care. And McDonald's CEO and those in the McDonald's family, right? They don't really care that their people are getting sick. They're just, enjoying their yachts and rolling in all the cash that they're flooding into their wallets, right? So I started thinking that maybe it might be time that, we really start holding these corporations accountable for how sick they're making the population. Now, I know some people will say, well, hey, it's their fault for eating it. But let me tell you, family, if you have something brainwashing you every day, you don't think that's going to affect some people who maybe are not as susceptible, they are more susceptible, They aren't able to have a resistance, right? And they do target kids. And kids, when your parents are tired, right, they badger and you cave in, and it's a whole cycle. So I think that one way we could really make a healthier population is if we stopped allowing fast food companies to advertise on all kids channels, so like Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, all those channels, and on YouTube. I think we should take away fast food companies' ability to market their products. Because I was thinking about this, family, when I was in the gym today, all the commercials, like so many of them are fast food, Jack in the Box, Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, and I had to think to myself, like, we're all here trying to get healthy, and there's these artificially filtered, photoshopped, whatever you want to call it, edited ads that are, the colors are bright, they draw you in, they have all these aspects to them that make them so appealing to people. And some people, right when they get out of the gym, if there's like a local Burger King or a Shake Shack or something like that, they might go and get it and think, well, I've earned it and I can do it and it won't hurt me if I just have it this one time. But if I was a president and I had some form of control, whether it was a king or queen or whatever it was, whatever system of government, just pretend I'm in power, I would not allow them to. And I know a lot of people who are for the free market would say, you can't interfere in the market. We need Adam Smith's type of policies. You artificially controlling the market and not allowing means and demand to flourish. You're actually setting up a trap, and people should be free to poison themselves. But I think And then people will also say, well, if these people are willingly eating this trash food, they're not exercising, it's their fault for getting sick, therefore we shouldn't have to have tax-funded healthcare. They made the decision, they got sick. But I would say another side to that is this: disease spreads really quick in the poorer communities. And if we think about how our homeless people are suffering, and we think about how our veterans are suffering, and we think about how kids are getting sick, and how our cities we're so congested and piled on top of each other, that I think that the next disease outbreak will be from a city. And we know that a lot of these cities are dumping their trash, illegally dumping. The poor people and the homeless people are living next to the trash, and the rats are getting out of control, especially in places like New York and Baltimore. And we know that when humans get in close contact with certain animals that are also covered in feces and urine and trash and whatever other horrible chemicals that are out there, and diseases and germs, that they spread very easily to humans. So I know that we're very individualistic here sometimes in America. Rugged individualism is one of the founding principles of many, colonists who first came here, and the John Smith ethics of those who do not work shall not eat is very apparent, and I can agree with some of those. But when it comes to healthcare, we have a duty, I feel, to help people, and I think it'll just bust the doors open on these corporations who are poisoning us. And for example, I remember about 7 years ago, before we knew that Monsanto was causing so much problems with their chemicals, their pesticides, so many people were like, you're a conspiracy theorist, Monsanto's fine, pesticides are fine, herbicides are fine, fungicides are fine, they have no damage whatsoever to the human body. And now we're discovering they have reproductive damages to women, right? Making babies be born deformed, giving the agricultural workers cancer, poisons the soil, poisons the water, poisons the seeds, which the birds eat, and then what eats the bird gets sick and get poisoned. It's like all linked and all in a cycle, right? And if we found that out, and we were so wrong about Monsanto, and now Monsanto, this mega corporation who is able to use its money to pay lobbyists, to push networks not to cover negative stories on them, we are being suckered, and we are being like, we are supposed to be in America the free eagle, right? The independent raptor, right? The independent bird. But reality, I think we're all turning into dairy cows. I think every corporation is singing how they can take money from us. And the food industry is one of them. And people will say, well, cheap food, it needs to be available. McDonald's has to be available for poor people. But the weird thing is why can't we start having commercials for like rice and beans, tortillas, avocados? Like, why can't we have commercials showing people how to eat healthy and cheap? And I think that would change the consciousness of our people. I really do. Because I'm noticing so many more sick people now. And I had this one lady who I know, and she has some mental problems, right? She's not 100% there, but she has a kind spirit. And I can tell she doesn't take care of herself, and she's in one of my classes, and I try to help her in any way I can, which without overextending myself. I try to talk to her about her homework, right? But I know that people like her who they have mental issues that they don't have any help with, they don't really have the money to get some help. Those kinds of people are the victims of these companies that put all these preservatives and garbage in their food. Because not everybody has the time to research and read the boring articles about what these food additives are doing to us. And the fact that none of us are holding the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, responsible for their errors shows how we are getting, lost. And to connect it back to healthcare, I think we need to start really regulating about what can be sold in schools to children as well. Candy is awesome. I grew up eating a lot of candy, but then again, that's part of what contributed to my stomach problems and why so many kids in the United States and now in Latin America are getting diabetes, because there's so much sugar in the food that it's causing problems. And some scientific studies have done some research on the brain activity. How it behaves under vast amounts of sugar is very similar to the way in which cocaine acts within the mind, and that there's withdrawals from sugar, and that sugar in your gut biome it actually makes you crave more sugar, that your stomach actually adjusts to that type of influx of sugar rates. So I wonder if we could do more. And a lot of people will say, well, it's not the government's job to regulate health. It's not the government's job to tell people what to eat. But family, how can we just forget about our people? I'm afraid that we're all going to become so like, well, that person's dying of cancer, so F them, I don't got it. Oh, that person got kidney failure. That person has kidney stones. We don't realize how people being sick is going to hurt the labor force. And people will say, well, let them get sick and die, and who cares? There'll be a line of new people from all over the world who will line up to work. But when those people come here and they eat our diet, they will get sick too. And our diet, if you see what our commercials are, it's terrible. It's beer, it's fast food, and consumerism of cars and things that don't really matter. And you're like, well, yeah, they're commercials. They're designed to make you buy something. That's how our economy runs. We are a consumer society. But I think we could change those commercials, right? Instead of having, oh, hey, buy this Lexus. Why can't there be a commercial like, hey, do you want to volunteer for this hospital? Come on down and, deal with the sick. It's scary how we're forgetting our people. We're forgetting our roots. We're forgetting how to be healthy. And it's weird to me more and more how the healthy, normal, organic food that our ancestors used to eat, the elites are pricing us out of existence. They're making it harder for you to feed your family. And since some people are emotional eaters, they'll say, well, hey, eating an apple is not as satisfying as eating a Domino's pizza, right? And if you want to eat pizza, there's some really good Italian restaurants that are going to use better ingredients, right? And so at least if you're going to have a little splurge, you can go with the better options of the two. But it's linked. Food is linked psychologically, psychologically to us. So I wonder if we started having more motivators for healthy living, and not, I don't mean the girls who wear like yoga pants and, well, I wear yoga pants, but let me just give like a general stereotype of like a really preppy, perfect girl who wants to wear a sports bra, and she has a bunch of supplements that she's advertising, and she makes it seem like her life is perfect, and she rubs her lifestyle in fat people's faces. I meet a lot of those girls. I know a lot of those girls. And that's not going to motivate a lot of people. That's just going to make somebody who's emotionally struggling, depressed, filled with anxiety, can't handle the workout routine, feels like cooking is too hard, they will just let themselves fall into despair. So I don't think, I like to watch Holly Holm and her workout routines, but I'm talking about baby steps we could do for people and to try to motivate them to be more healthy. But I think if more people went to the doctor, right? They went to the doctor and the doctor said, hey, you need to cut back on X, Y, and Z. People might say, oh, okay. And then they go out and they see a commercial, and it's a healthy commercial. Then they go on YouTube and they see somebody who's showing them how to do easy recipes for beginners, right? I feel like that could create a change in the zeitgeist. It could create a change in our consciousness in America. I grew up as a McDonald's baby, and so many people are saying that, this is not the way to be. And a lot of people have started to wonder in the darker realm of things, because people want the population to go down. And then they say, hey, well, if more people get sick, more people die, more people become mentally weak cognitively, they're easier to control, it's their fault, they want to be the sheep, therefore let it happen. But I think that's not the way to be, family. I'm tired of just seeing people sick and then going to medical bankruptcy. It's a weird thing that you could work your whole life, right? And then one terrible, terrible, terrible illness falls on you because it's been slowly accumulating in your body, and then it happens. You couldn't prepare for that. And here's the thing, we have access, right? But you can't afford to get in. I've had experiences with doctors where you're like, how much is this? And then I remember one time I had to beg a dentist to do some work because I didn't have $4,000 right then and there to give to the lady. And as they were putting the anesthesia on my mouth, the lady was like, okay, sign here on this clipboard that you're going to pay blah, blah, blah per month. And it's like they couldn't even wait until afterwards, until I was healed. They wanted the money right then and there. And so many people have these stories of really greedy doctors. And they say, well, hey, they went to medical school, they're in debt, therefore they have a right to charge whatever they want. But here's what I'm going to go back to. Remember when we were like tribal, when we were in the village and there was the medicine man, there was the healer in the community, right? The healer helped all. They had that calling, right? To help, to truly help, not just to pay off their student debt and get money and then go out and do their thing. And I understand that a lot of the doctors, they're suffering and, you know, they struggle with the insurance companies and some of them want to do good, but they can't. And it's a problem. But if we can afford bombs, why can't we afford healthcare? It's strange to me how my people are so pro-war that they're like, yeah, give Trump extra military budget. Let him just blow everyone to smithereens. Yeah. Spend on tanks that we're not even going to use. Yeah, buy those jets that are just going to sit there. Oh, yeah, do all this stuff. And then when you say, hey, how about we help a lady with her diabetes medication because she can't afford it because she's living off Social Security. And they're like, nah, they have Medicare. And it's not like, well, hey, then what if it doesn't cover everything? And they're like, well, that's their fault. They should have worked harder when they were young. It's very selfish, you know? And I wonder if that's going to be part of our downfall, is so many of our people will become sick that we won't even be able to be a competitive force, right? If all the children are being sick, if all the children are being born with deformities and illnesses that prevent them from, you know, competing as much as they could potentially in the economy, while another country might have better food and better healthcare, that country will then take over in the hegemonic power. So I feel like a lot of pro-Americana people are forgetting that war is not the only way you could compete. And you do need your soldiers to be taken care of and the soldiers' family. And they say, well, yeah, they get benefits, so it covers the family members. Yeah, but there's other people outside that soldier's family, right? We're all a unit. We're all in this together. We're called the United States, right? But why do we have to not be united in our fight against disease? We can be united against it. We can, you know, have corporate accountability, you know, and these prescription pills that also cause side effects. And a lot of them have warnings, like even ibuprofen says like, hey, it can give you liver damage and stomach ulcers. And you're like, this what? Are you kidding me? And it's like, yeah, well, that's only 2% of this study that got those, but it's still a risk, right? And can you take ibuprofen to court and say, hey, ibuprofen company, blah, 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 you have to pay my medical bills because your pills gave this? And then that company, that pharma company is so powerful, they're not going to pay for it. They're like, nah, that's you. You decided to take it. You went into CVS and you did it. I'm scot-free. Bye. And then that person is left struggling. And then when that person's left struggling, they might leave a family behind, right? The kids feel it. The community feels it. We're all connected. And Bernie Sanders is fighting for healthcare. And you may not agree with everything he says, but how can anybody truly, when they look deep down in their heart and when they're not being a conservative parrot, right? Pretending they care about the fiscal budget. Pretending they care. And if you do care more about a budget than sick people getting help in hospitals, I think you should go to a hospital. I think you should go to a hospital, volunteer, go through it, and then see how these people are dying. And then hear them cry about their bills. Or watch some videos where people give testaments about how they're suffering under their bills. Imagine this. We have an economy now where students are drowning in debt. And then on top of that, they can't buy a home. It's too expensive. And then on top of that, wages are stagnant. Then on top of that, taxes want to be raised for war. And then on top of that, there's the shark of medical bankruptcy constantly behind them. That's a dark, dark weight to have on your soul while you're just trying to exist on the earth. You know? So I'm for healthcare for all. And I get how some people might be afraid of that. They say, well, that's the nanny state. We can't, give everything over to the government. But if we can't fight for healthcare, what can we fight for? I mean, really, family. I think we'll find out so much more about what's causing illnesses. Plus, let's think about this. We know it's not healthy for us to breathe in car fumes all day. We know this, yet we're breathing it in. We don't think that's causing damage to our lungs. And maybe, once we learn that, we'll create cleaner cars, right? People will be motivated to be like, hey, a certain percentage of people over X amount of years were exposed to X amount of exhaust, which caused X disease, right? And then people will say, well, I guess it's time to regulate car companies to make this change. And that will lead to a better society overall and health outcomes. So there's such a bigger picture here that we're not looking at. And Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, people like that are just so anti-healthcare. And it's like, yeah, not everybody can be a YouTube star and have family who will pay their bills for them. And it's cruel and ignorant to think that there's going to be some charity person who will fix their healthcare bills. No. We are a modern nation. What's the point of living in an empire if you're going to die slowly from disease that is preventable, that was given by certain drugs and food and pollution? I mean, come on. We can do better. So what do you guys think? Are you for or against universal health care? And if you are for it, what are your reasons for it? And if you're against it, give me reasons besides pretending that it's going to add to the budget, or we can't afford it. How are you going to pay for it? Okay, we're going to have Wall Street speculators be taxed, and then we'll use that. Or we can take cannabis sales and take a percentage of that, because it's a new rising industry, legalize cannabis federally, use that tax revenue to fund healthcare. That could be a wonderful thing. Or we'll tax the hell out of these big pharma companies and make it so that they will have to pay significantly for people who are able to have evidence against them showing that they were inflicted by these pills. And maybe even have an attorney or some people who can help them, a defense lawyer, I'm not sure what it's called, but somebody legally who can help them fight against these big companies. Something like that. I'm not exactly sure how we'll do it, but I think it's time we start talking about it. We got so many brilliant minds in this country and all over the world, so we need to stop pretending that we can't get healthcare that'll be effective and helpful. Come on, if we can go to the moon, if we can invent the internet, if we can have electricity, right? If we can invent fracking, if we can have all these technologies, why can't we find a way to make healthcare available to all? All right, family.